Australian people of Reddit, how big does a spider have to be for you to consider it big? Hot Rods and Horror said, about hand-sized. But it's the little bastards that live below knee height I'm scared of. Not Medio Straw said, our largest spiders are various species of huntsman. https://australian.museum/learn/animals/spiders/huntsman-spiders/ They almost never bite and aren't life-threatening. They don't weave webs and eat other spiders that do, as well as lots of other pest insects, especially cockroaches. They are very good to have around the house and it's considered bad to harm or remove them. Charles said, I once had a few yellow jackets, I honestly don't know how many, attack me at a public park not too far off from my car. I sprinted to my car only getting stung a couple of times and jumped in and slammed the door. Heart pounding, I assessed my surroundings and was relieved to find I was safe in my car. At this time one sting on my butt was swelling, so I was sitting with my right side cocked up because of the pressure. I started driving home. As soon as I entered the highway, one of these fuckers flew up from somewhere and, like something out of a cartoon, seemingly stared right into my eyes in a moment of pure evil. In Q split second I was frantically dancing like a 2000 scene kid on the side of the road, throwing pennies everywhere and screaming for my life. If there had been any other cars around, I believe I would have hit them. I could not think beyond. Get to the shoulder and get out. So many swollen lumps after that. Super Caffeinaplata said, wow, I skimmed that article info and saw that those spiders are only 2 centimeters across. Not big at all. Then I saw that is just the body, the legs are 15 centimeters across. Haha, and it is seriously considered bad to remove a 6+ inch spider from the house because they eat the more dangerous spiders? Nuts. Super Caffeinaplata said, I get it in both cases, it's the same thing here in the States with gopher snakes. People are always posting pictures of gopher snakes on the community Facebook page asking if they should kill the scary snake. I always say that is a good snake, you want to keep those around to kill the rodents, and they can hold their own against rattlesnakes. It's just hard to substitute a 6-inch spider there. I guess it comes back to your tolerance and what you're used to. The mom said, okay, I clicked the link and I shouldn't have. I'm still feeling tingles run down my spine and I can still see that image when I close my eyes. I'm from an area that has wolf spiders and scorpions and those freak me out, but I've learned to deal with them as I'm a single mom, as someone has to deal with them, but this would be a move out and burn my house down scenario if I saw that sucker. Perplexed2 said, I has a legitimate shaking panic last night because of a harmless spider roughly the size of a small baby's hand. That's as big as spiders really get in Ireland, and there are no dangerous ones at all, thank God. I just can't handle them. I woke up with one in my bed crawling up my leg as a kid and freaked out, and I just can't cope with them since. I know it's totally irrational, but I can't control it. The one last night was blocking the bathroom door, so I had to go get my cat and throw him at it. I couldn't even approach it to squish it. Hangover said, I just can't handle them. I woke up with one in my bed crawling up my leg as a kid and freaked out, and I just can't cope with them since. I know it's totally irrational, but I can't control it. Yeah man. It's been over 10 years since my childhood incident and I can't put my hands in my pockets without thinking about it. Used to sleep in my school clothes BC. I was so excited to go to school. Well, one morning I went to fix my balled up pocket and a giant fucking brown recluse crawled from my pocket, up my arm, over my shoulder, and down my back. A few other childhood spider incidents later, and now 24 I scream, someone come get this fucking spider. Instead of moving it myself. Antman 666 said, LOL, no. Not many will kill you, and even then you have time to go to the doc. I only know of one guy who had to go to hospital. It was Steve's 3rd week at his new job with me. I started at 3 a.m. with him. He came in with big white blister in the middle of his hand and his vein going up from his wrist was very red. He said he didn't feel well but was new to work and didn't want to let us down. After 2 hours of telling him to go to hospital and pointing out the redness in his vein had moved to his shoulder, he finally went and went. It turned out to be a spider bite, and after a day on a drip he was right as rain. Danceman 2000 said, one of the common spiders we have is the huntsman. They can get quite large and pretty hairy. The thing is though, the huntsman is pretty friendly, and is one of the few spiders that don't hunt with a web. Instead, it crawls around hunting and will kill the nasty venomous spiders we have around. So the chances are if it's a big spider it's going to be your friend. And a much smaller spider is the one you want to look out for. TLDR, big spider is your fuzzy friend. Small spider will mess you up. Crab hands, the man said. It's a big invasive party down here in Florida. In my yard right now I've got brown and night anoles, African agamus, cane toads, Cuban tree frogs, brown basilisks and Haitian curly tails. There are iguanas, tegus, some geckos and some monitors in my county as well. Not to mention hogs, pythons, nutria rats, a ton of escaped pet reptiles and birds and even the odd escaped monkey every few years. It's fucking wild. Deadless Raceland said. Yeah, we usually leave them in our house, or relocate them outside. We had one we just let stay for a while, because it wasn't causing issues. My friend who hates spiders really doesn't want to come here. You will get the occasional asshole though. In 2 years of living on this farm, I've only had one aggressive huntsman. It circled above my head on the roof for a while, ran near a daddy longlegs who went in to attack it, and I guess felt like I was in charge of those other spiders cause the fucker jumped at my face. It was hand-sized, and I jumped and screamed like a little girl. It kept coming after me. I went to bed only for my cat to chase it under there, and it crawled up to greet me. I whacked it with a drink bottle and it went away. Then as I'm laying in bed browsing Reddit, without my glasses on, it moved quietly above my head. In the moment it took me to sit up and reach for my glasses, it landed on my pillow. Phone went flying, and I whacked it again, several times, with a drink bottle. I bug bombed the room the next day cause that fucker wasn't dead yet. I found it had crawled out from under my bed, but didn't get much further than that. So yeah, usually docile and they take out dangerous spiders. But I still don't want to be intimate with them. Tulinip said. A common experience. Years ago I had week-long Facebook thing called The Adventures of Fluffy. Fluffy was an arsehole huntsman. He knew the rules and explicitly broke them, the rules being, you stay in the corner eating the other creepy crawl eyes and we let you live in the house. Fluffy's favorite activity was waiting until you weren't looking to move closer to you. It didn't matter where I was, he would keep creeping towards me. Luckily Fluffy the fucker was big enough that you could hear his footsteps. It's the tapping sound of a dog with long nails walking on a hard surface. The whole thing ended when Fluffy out-arseholed himself one night. He kept waiting for me to turn the lights off before galloping around the walls toward my head, forcing me to turn the lights on to make him stop and move away again. After a while it seemed like he'd tired himself and migrated back to the other side of the room, and I got under the sheets and went to sleep. I woke to what felt like a cat on my leg, so I turned the light on to see Fluffy start running up the sheets toward me. I kicked the sheets and sent him flying into the wall. Sounded like a book hitting the wall. He ricocheted past the foot of my bed and that was the last I saw of him. I slept on the couch. Welsh Jerly 2 said. New Zealand has huntsman spiders too. You know the spiders they used in the film Arachnophobia? Australia wouldn't let the producers take a bunch of native huntsmen out of the country, so the producers got them from New Zealand, where the huntsmen are a non-native species. And NZ has its own redback spiders, the katipo. But they're seriously endangered now due to loss of habitat and the introduction of the Steatota, false widow, spiders who are competing with the katipo and forcing them into ever smaller areas. Devakit said. I bug bombed the room the next day cause that fucker wasn't dead yet. I found it had crawled out from under my bed, but didn't get much further than that. Have lived in Australia for 30 years and had my first legit scary run-in with a huntsman late last year. We normally only get the usual gray-brown huntsman where I live, but this one was a very dark brown-black, was definitely a huntsman too, not a mouse spider. My partner made me spray it down and it did the whole all legs in the air I'm dying made, and I figured cool, it's dead time to move on. Fucking nope. Like the goddamn Terminator, this thing flipped back over and slowly crawled away and hid until we got home that afternoon. This time upon finding it I used the heavy-duty spray and doused that fucker until you could see the poison dripping off it like sweat. Goddamn, no reaction. Eventually I had to get the steel caps and just flatten the fucker, as apparently this bloke is the Wolverine of spiders and had adapted to poison entirely, it seemed. So yeah, that happened and it was goddamn trauma-inducing. Deadless Raceland said. Yeah, I experienced something similar myself. A different encounter to the above post, I sprayed this one huntsman a little, and it didn't seem to affect it much. So I covered the thing in fly spray, like absolutely soaked. You couldn't see where the counter ended and the spider began. It was just a sea of foam. I waited a minute, staring at it, sure I bested it. Until it unfolded its legs from the I'm so dead pose, and just got up and started walking away. I made sure I heard a crunch when I squished it with a bottle. Adrius28 said. Red stripes. They rarely bite humans, and when disturbed, they usually try to escape or feign death by curling its legs and dropping to the ground. The bite of a redback spider is capable of causing death, especially in small children, and any bite should be treated with the utmost caution. NSW Health says redback spider bites are common but very unlikely to prove lethal, even if untreated. They can result in severe pain and symptoms that can continue from hours to days. The initial bite may only cause mild discomfort or irritation, and sometimes is not even noticed. Pain usually increases over an hour or two and may radiate up the limb. Abdominal or chest pain may develop, as may pain in other parts of the body. The pain is persistent and usually severe enough to interfere with normal activities, such as work or sleep. The duration of effects vary, with only moderate pain for a few hours in some cases, to severe persistent pain for 2 to 5 days. Other symptoms can include nausea, vomiting, headache, malaise and lethargy. Mountain Man 388 said. There's a veritable shed load of misinformation in this thread. The biggest spiders in Australia would probably be from the golden orb weaver, huntsman, and tarantula families. None of them are considered dangerous to humans. The only spiders whose bites have resulted in human deaths are redbacks and funnel webs, but there have been no deaths since the antivenoms were developed in 1956 and 1980, respectively. Redbacks have taken well to human habitation, and so educating people about where they live, under pot plants, cladding, etc., when they're active, night, and their temperament, shy, retiring, is important. But a bite from one will often see the patient go home and wait to see if symptoms develop. Funnel webs are treated more seriously, and a bite from one requires a pressure bandage and immobilization of the limb, same as for venomous snakes. Unlike redbacks, funnel web males do go wandering in the warmer months looking for a mate, so again, education is paramount. Knowing when they're on the move, late spring to early autumn, where they like to hide, boots left outside, anywhere dark, and whether the Sydney funnel web even lives in your area. All deaths prior to the antivenom most likely were due to Atrix robustus. West Coast Inverts said. I'm an invertebrate zoologist and tarantula breeder salesperson. A hand size is either Trichonephila eduli, golden orb weaver, kinda common, or Selenicosmia crassipes, Australian whistling tarantula, extremely rare for your regular person to see. It's also extremely rare that you'll, or even me, will see a spider that can put you in danger, even rarer that you'll see a spider that can kill you. There are a few genus that can kill you, mostly Mischelina, mouse spiders, Atrox, genus of funnel webs including the Sydney funnel, Hydrantia or other funnel webs. There are so many genera of spiders in Australia that the general public think can damage you, but it's just a myth. Take these other comments with a pinch of salt. Most people don't know shit about spiders. Balls12 said. I was driving to school in high school one morning in my tiny hatchback and went to put my sun visor down. It was such a small car that you sort of had to turn your head to the side so it wouldn't hit your head on the way down. When it flipped down, there was what looked like a white-haired huntsman spider covering the whole visor, now less than 10 centimeters, 4 inches, from my head. I was going around 70 km/h, 40 mph, and couldn't easily pull the car over, so I just slowly flipped the visor up and tilted my seat back and drove to school. I never saw that spider again, but it was really common that they would come into the car for warmth, I guess. Sparking Mineral Water said. Spread your fingers out like you're trying to show the number 5. I'm pretty sure the big spider from my childhood was a little larger than that. Of course, this is only an estimate. I must admit, however, that while I make a habit of educating people about how the nightmare creatures we have here usually aren't actually the dangerous, I saw a very tiny boy today and lost my shit, so, yeah. Anything is pretty big. Daffy said. Welp. I'm an arachnophobe, but I'm also Aussie. Bush kid. So whilst all spiders scare the shit out of me, I'd only call it big if it was a large huntsman, or big for a dangerous kind. Common huntsmans would be about my adult hand span, Big huntsmans, like the ones you see eating mice, they can be dinner plate sized. I've seen some massive redbacks and funnel webs, whitetails, mouse spiders, wolf spiders, trapdoor spiders, golden orbs. I hate those fuckers, they move so fast and make the most creepy fucking noise. My skin is crawling just talking about it. I'ma need a shower with some orange soap on a Brillo now. Lego Dragon said. When it's too big to trap in a glass so I can transport it outside. By glass I mean drinking glass or cup or tumbler or schooner or something like that. That's not leg size either. I've caught some quite large huntsmans before and they all pull their legs in once they realize they are under the glass cup. As to how to keep it in the glass? Just slide a piece of paper or catalog or something between the glass cup and the floor wall roof and they pretty quickly head to the other end. Spider bras are fine. Even the larger ones. LK007 said. Lived in most part of my life until 2021. The last house lived in had lot more spiders than any other houses which we rented as me and my mates. This happened to be a house which was rented by a bunch of druggies before, so they refused to pay the rent and somehow got evicted, and this house was on listing for years until me and my mates found it. They said some person died in that house too. We never cared any of that and moved anyway. The only thing we couldn't get rid of was spiders. They were everywhere, small ones which couldn't do much of a damage, not the redbacks, just TG irregular ones. Once I've seen a damn tarantula skipping away, had me work boots on and I stomped on it and it was the size of my palm. Aussies are the best group of people I've met, and arguably I know whites tend to be racist towards others and such. If Aussies were on the place where America is, world would be a much cooler, drunk place. If you're an Aussie, you know what I mean, mate. Rangadang said. I try to fight back against the everything in Australia wants to kill you meme because it scares people off from visiting. Honestly, Australia is a great place to visit, although it is a long trip from pretty much everywhere. The wildlife really isn't that bad here. As a tourist you are unlikely to run into anything. I've lived here over 30 years in a sheltered suburban city existence mostly and seen a snake maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. Spiders you might see occasionally, but if you're just visiting you may not see any at all depending on where you go. H. Hedgert said. All these paid actors from Australia talking about spiders like they're the same as dogs or cats to the rest of the world. Bullshit. I don't want to find a spider in my coffee cup or in my bedroom or shower or anywhere indoors, no matter how harmless they are. I'm not scared of spiders here where I live, but they are just annoying and don't contribute to the peace of mind. That'd be 1000x worse in Australia. Heroiderm said. Size of your hand. We don't have those where I live. I'm English farmer but I live in Australia. I was surprised how big the spiders were. I put on my hoodie to go to work and I felt something crawling in my hair. I ripped off the hood and spider was in my hair. It was about as big as my palm. But it's not only big spiders you should worry about. Small ones like redbacks and funnel webs are probably going to make you sick. We have large huntmans in the house. I leave them, they eat the flies. It's the drop bears you have to really worry about, much more dangerous than the spiders. Kalashboy 420 said. It's not the big ones to worry about, mate, it's the little bastards you have to look out for like redbacks. I used to play squad out and was talking to this one guy who said his mate in the army went to America for exercises and ended up having to be flown back to Aussie because he got bitten by a redback over there, and of course they didn't have anti-venom. Australia is taking over, lads. But no one has died from a redback bite for the last 50 years, IRC. Obscure Ferences said. It depends on the species. We get to recognizing a few types and big is relative to the norm. So a huntsman has to be the size of your face before it's a biggin, but if you saw a redback merely straddling your coffee cup that'd be a biggie too. Bear in mind that, if you're speaking Australian, once they reach a certain size it goes the other way. A spider the size of a car would be a little bugger. The Banana King said. Size doesn't matter, species does. Orb weavers in the garden can have a body like a golf ball and a 10-centimeter leg span, but they're harmless, you just walk around them. Huntsmen on your ceiling can have a body like a squished tennis ball and a reach bigger than a man's hand, but again they're great. They're all named Kevin and they eat cockroaches. Redbacks barely make it to grape-sized, but they can fuck you right up. You might not die but you're gonna be in hospital for a few days in great pain. The properly deadly ones are funnel webs, which are a whole lot bigger than golf ball size, legs included, but they're built like a battle mech, and there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they're trouble. Still in Symphony said, "We've got a few species of spider usually. The medium-sized ones that make pretty webs are mostly harmless. The small ones that make little tangly webs in small spaces have a chance of being very bad. The big ones that run on walls generally aren't aggressive and are brus, and the really big ones that crawl on the ground are life-threatening. But none of that really registers right as you see the thing, so a good rule of thumb is, if it's big enough to scare you, then it's bloody massive. If it isn't big enough to scare you, then it's just a tiny little bugger and the rest of you are weenies for worrying about it." The Nixter said, "I live in the Gold Coast hinterland. One night on my way home, I slowed my car down as I thought I saw a small mammal on the road, and I didn't want to hit it, as you do. It turned out to be a Queensland bird-eating spider, also known as Selanicosmia crassipes or the Queensland whistling tarantula. The shadow of the headlights made it look like something out of a horror movie, but even still, it was at least 20 centimeters in span. Up until then, I didn't even know that they existed. To this day, I haven't considered a spider to be big by comparison.